Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06 Tuesday morning. It's the 22nd day of July. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 7:05, Senator Ron Johnson. He's going to give us a update on his intention to hold the Biden administration accountable for covering up Joe Biden's health concerns. I might have some questions for him about the Obama connection to the Russian collusion hoax as well. At 7:35, John Christensen from the New York Post. He had an exclusive story yesterday about how Secretary Pete, who wants to be president, spent $80 billion from the Department of Transportation on DEI grants, but sort of looked over and ignored upgrading air traffic control systems. But he has his priorities, after all. 8:05, Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, talk about the absolute unhinged meltdown from Hunter Biden yesterday in that podcast interview he granted. But boy, Heather Hunter, our executive producer, almost broke our bleep button censoring all those clips. A lot of F words dropped there, which clearly means one thing. He's running. Hunter Biden wants to be president. It's Larry O'Connor here with Julie Gunlock over there. Julie, did you see the Hunter Biden?
Yeah, that is quite remarkable.
I mean, one has to. Everybody's like, "Oh, what's he doing? Why is he doing that?" What is different about Hunter Biden's message and approach and demeanor compared to, say, Gavin Newsom? I mean, really, Gavin's a little more polished.
Maybe not so many F words.
I mean, no, I don't know. I mean, he's being edgy going on all these bro podcasts, right? I mean, he dropped some profanity on his last podcast interview.
Yeah, neither one of them are exactly making any sense. That's certainly consistent.
Sadly, Rahm Emanuel, who is running for president also, I think, or at least testing the waters, he told Megyn Kelly yesterday, he sat with Megyn Kelly for a long interview, like an hour-long interview, I think, about everything. You know, he's trying to get his message out, why he's a practical, pragmatic Democrat and everything. The biggest headline, in fact, the only headline, if you search on social media, Rahm Emanuel's name, you'll see nothing but clip after clip after clip. Megyn Kelly says, the question was, can a man become a woman? And Rahm Emanuel, without hesitating, said no.
No.
And that's the headline. That's huge news. That a prominent Democrat with a potential national race ahead of him says that a man cannot be a woman, and that's like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that.
Well, and she went through a number of other questions. Should men be put in women's prisons? No. Right. Should men play in women's sports? No. Right. I mean, there were several answers to these questions that, heretofore you were a bigot. You were a horrible person. If you said, and here's Rahm Emanuel, formerly, one of the leaders of the Democrat Party, because no longer. I mean, at the end of the Megyn Kelly interview, he goes, "I'm going to have to go into the witness protection program." Right, for answering those obvious, logical, fundamental, common sense questions correctly. And the whole thing got overshadowed. First of all, by the way, I couldn't tell you anything else Rahm Emanuel said, which is kind of sad that it got overshadowed by that one moment, but it is huge. And we'll play it for you later in the program. And the best part is it got overshadowed by Hunter Biden's dropping the F-bomb and telling people how to make crack in your home. This party. Good God.
Oh, it's wonderful. All right, so let's turn to this New York Post article. Again, we've got the author of this article coming up at 7:35 to talk about it. But as you know, Pete Buttigieg, he's accomplished three things in life. That's not true. Four. He did serve in our United States Navy overseas, I believe as an intel officer in Afghanistan. And the real fundamental output from that service is that he has a lot of pictures of himself in uniform holding a gun. And so he can put that into his montages for running for political office to say, see, I served. I'm being cynical, but truly that's all it seems to be.
I don't know. Are you? Okay.
I don't think he ever left the base while he was over there. But that's all right. It's fine. We all serve. Fine. Everybody serves in their own way. And I didn't serve, so I shouldn't criticize, I suppose. All right. So there's that. There's number one. He accomplished that. Number two, he was mayor of the fourth largest city in Indiana, South Bend, Indiana.
In Indiana.
That's something. He's been mayor of a bigger city than I've ever been mayor of.
Sure, fine. You're being so generous this morning.
Yeah, all right. Number 3, he ran for president. He did.
Yep.
Lots of raised money, went on the campaign trail. Didn't really.
Sure.
Did he win? Oh, he won Iowa, didn't he? Now that I think about it.
No, really? Did he?
In 2020, he won Iowa. Yeah. And then finally, he was Secretary of Transportation. And now, and honestly, not that he wants to be president, he's going to run. You can tell because he grew a beard. I'm not talking about he didn't get a girlfriend or anything. Don't get me wrong, not that kind of beard.
Right.
Yeah, actually, he's refused
to
shave.
He was Secretary of Transportation. Almost got us all killed, but whatever. He was.
Well, I mean, you would think that his performance as Secretary of Transportation
not great
is the top thing you're going to evaluate. Say, now that he wants to be president again, you're going to say, okay, what was your last job and what's the biggest job you've ever had? And he was a cabinet secretary. That's a big deal. So everything he did as Secretary of Transportation should be, held. Now, if you remember, in the first several months of this new administration, we had major transportation disasters, mostly at our airports, that Secretary Duffy, Sean Duffy, now it's constant. And it was revealed that we, have such an outdated air traffic control system and that serious upgrades needed. We had a crash that killed over 100 souls in the Potomac here at Washington National Airport. We had to shut
the Ohio
down
train crash,
the Newark Airport. We had all of these things, and then on his watch, we had all those train wrecks.
Yeah.
So how did he do as Secretary of Transportation? What did he do? So here's this article in the New York Post. Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg failed to replace outdated air traffic control systems while in office, with his agency instead shelling out tens of billions of dollars on a DEI agenda, according to federal spending records and airline industry leaders. In one meeting, Buttigieg, who is said to be eyeing a 2028 presidential run, told industry executives that air traffic control upgrades would just allow them to fly more planes, quote, and so why would that be in his interest, unquote, sources said. So the airline industry is trying to push the Secretary of Transportation, hey, you got to upgrade these air traffic controls. And his response is, why? So you can fly more planes? Why is that my problem? Now, first of all, that's not why. You do it because the planes you've got in the air right now need to be flown and landed, more importantly, safely.
Yeah.
Number one. But number two, that's 100% your job. Your job is to partly facilitate the expansion of our transportation infrastructure. If that means more people flying on planes, great. But apparently that wasn't a priority for him. He was definitely pushing an agenda, an air industry official said, noting the transportation secretary, quote, had little to no interest, unquote, and took definitely zero action toward air traffic control modernization. What his department was really interested in was handing out hundreds of diversity, equity, and inclusion grants totaling more than $80 billion over 4 years, at least half of the DOT's entire budget for a typical fiscal year. Half his budget he handed out for DEI grants, because when you think transportation, you think, well, is everyone being included, and is there equitable distribution of funds? And God, please make sure that our roads and bridges and railways are diverse.
Well, and also don't forget, I mean, he's this big, so-called environmentalist. He believes that air traffic pollutes. It contributes to climate change. So it is in his interest to not make air traffic more available or more planes flying. He thinks these things are bad. So in his mind, putting an environmental agenda over transportation was key. And actually, he probably, in his mind, thought, I'm in a great position to actually do good. Now, of course, remember, I'm in Pete Buttigieg's brain here. So, this obviously makes no sense. But to him, being in that position of power, he actually did good on the environmental front by not increasing air traffic.
I think you might be giving him more credit than he deserves. I'm going to explain in a minute why the fact that he funneled all that money to DEI programs was, first of all, obviously a politically cynical move, a selfish politically cynical move, number one. But number two, he couldn't even do that right. I'll explain in a sec. But first, it's 5:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
You'll remember that Josh Christensen at the New York Post reported back in May that the hotline connecting the Pentagon directly with the Reagan National Airport's control tower has been inoperable for over 3 years. Now, this is a hotline that they supposedly should be able to utilize whenever there are military or special aircraft in the area that aren't planned. And, because sometimes we get some flights that are not necessarily scheduled the way an air traffic controller would normally see. That makes Reagan one of the busiest and also most dangerous airports in America. And, of course, we had that horrible crash with an Army helicopter. We don't know if that was directly linked to the inoperation of this hotline, but it's indicative of the lack of focus on basic fundamentals in the transportation infrastructure that Pete Buttigieg just neglected because it was more important to hand out money for DEI programs, right? As Steve Christensen, as Josh Christensen at the Post is reporting today with this $80 billion, in DEI grants. Yes.
I mean, just really quickly, can you imagine, Larry, on 9/11, there not being a working phone between the FAA and the Pentagon? I mean, it seemed like, airplanes were being used as weapons. Pretty much. See, I cannot believe only 20 years later they've let this phone line just disappear. Fine, there are other ways of getting in touch with people, but that seems like an important hotline there, Larry.
Well, and we've had, the last several years, everyone has noticed that the growth of flight delays, flight cancellations, nightmares at airport, it's starting to reach critical mass. It's become a huge problem. And what's not reported very often is part of the problem has to do with lack of air traffic controllers. When overtime is pressed, when the shifts are over, they have to reduce. Some of these flights get canceled because they're so overtaxed at the tower. That's hardly ever reported. And according to an industry insider speaking to the New York Post, at first the Department of Transportation and he were reluctant to say there was an air traffic controller shortage or that the shortage had anything to do with flight delays or flight cancellations. This is according to an air industry official. Of course, the spokesperson for Buttigieg is denying all of this. But let me get to the real pathetic part of this, because cynically speaking, let's just be cynical for a minute and assume the worst of our elected officials and our politicians that have big jobs, like being a cabinet secretary here in Washington, D.C. Let's think the most cynically of Pete Buttigieg for a moment, okay? He didn't care about the airlines and air traffic control and the railways and train safety and the highways and road. He didn't care about anything at this Department of Transportation. He saw this as a job for the resume and a stepping stone for his next political endeavor, right?
That's absolutely right.
Be a cynical. And by the way, I may say the same thing about a Trump cabinet official, too. I think it's fair to say that some of the people in Trump's cabinet, when first offered their job, were probably like, okay, well, this will help me politically in the long run. Sure, I'll do that job. You know what I mean? Not because I don't know if Sean Duffy has a passion for transportation. I don't know that, but, let's just be cynical for a minute.
Sure.
If you're Pete Buttigieg and you're just looking at your new job as Secretary of Transportation for Joe Biden as a stepping stone for your political career, and then you say, okay, so I've got this big budget, don't I? And listen, one of my big problems when I ran for president back in 2020 was that I didn't appeal to black voters because, well, I look like the whitest man in the world. And, oh, by the way, I'm gay, and a little unspoken secret in the Democrat Party and in liberal circles is that black voters are not too keen on the gay issues. That's a political reality, and everybody knows that. Going all the way back to Obama. The same year Obama won the state of California in 2008, the state of California also voted in record numbers to reject gay marriage on the ballot in their constitution. And the black voters had a huge part of that, okay? So you're Pete Buttigieg. You just say, okay, I've got this budget. I'm a cabinet secretary. I'm going to try to use this money to appeal to black voters. DEI grants. That's it. I'm going to spend all this money on DEI grants, and I'm going to funnel that money through black groups so I can build myself a big, solid base with these influential black organizations and DEI organizations, and that'll help me politically. So I don't know if you've seen the polling lately of the 2028 primaries.
Not working?
In June, Emerson had a poll of the potential presidential candidates, for the Democrat nominations. They're just pulling Democrats. And do you know what Pete Buttigieg showed for his support in the black community? Do you know where he came in?
I don't. Tell me.
0. I mean,
well,
literally 0. Emerson College polled Democrats for the 2028 primary. You know, who are you looking at right now? And of black voters in the poll, literally nobody said they wanted Pete Buttigieg. So even what I'm saying is he couldn't even do this right. He couldn't even take federal funds, throw it to DEI programs to build his black base. It actually went down from 2020. He's a complete incompetent fool.
The best part of this, Larry, is he'll never call that out. He'll never address, is there bigotry in the black community towards the gay community? Let's discuss this. No. He'll just keep trying to figure out ways to throw money at the problem. It's beautiful.
Like I said, we've got Josh Christensen in the New York Post coming up at 7:35 to expand on this story even more. Right now, it's 5:23.
Well, in light of the information that Tulsi Gabbard released this week about the Russia collusion hoax, it's interesting to look how our local politicians acted at that time. And it looks like Spanberger, running for governor in Virginia, was one of the people who actively pushed the Russia collusion hoax. We'll give you an update on it. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 now. It's O'Connor and Company. And by the way, it's Larry and Julie. Julie, I was just really shook by the news that Malcolm Jamal Warner died tragically in a drowning accident in Costa Rica yesterday. I don't know. Did you? I mean, we all grew up with this guy as Bill Cosby's oldest son on the Cosby Show, and it was
my gosh,
such a stunning.
Larry, this is the first I'm hearing about this. Oh my gosh.
You missed this news yesterday? Oh,
I
gosh,
did.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah, it happened over the weekend in Costa Rica, and the news broke yesterday. We'll get into more details of it a little later. Died at the age of 54, but it's like it just truly feels like he was our brother,
No
on
kidding.
That show.
Oh my gosh.
Super sad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to throw that at you.
No, seriously.
I was just remarking on how I was emotionally hit by it, and now you're going through it yourself.
Yeah, no, I need to
so
shut
sorry.
my mouth because I'm literally wow, that's big Gen X news, Larry. Wow.
Big time. Theo Huxtable, tragic death. And from all accounts, a really super nice guy to work with. And you know what's really sad is because of what Bill Cosby did, people of this generation won't be able to really, they don't stream that show anymore. It's sort of kind of put on the back shelf.
I've let my kids watch. We went through a period of watching. We watched probably 2 seasons. My kids were hysterical. Loved it.
I will never forget watching that pilot episode with my dad, and we were in tears laughing. It was so funny, and it was just so. And what a great representation for it's just everything about it was great. He was great, and it's like for our age, for our generation, it shook us. So we'll get into that a little later. 7:05 Senator Ron Johnson will join us. 7:35 Josh Christensen of the New York Post, and 8:05 Joe Concha on the media. Abigail Spanberger wants to be the governor of Virginia, as you know. And, she ran in 2018 as a former CIA case agent. And it was the anti-Trump backlash year. It was also the middle of the Russian collusion hoax hysteria that we now have learned. I mean, we've always sort of known this, as you pointed out yesterday, Julie, but we now have paper trail. We have actual physical proof that the thing was concocted.
Yep.
But she was tip of the spear on this stuff, I mean, who at the Washington Post or, some of the radio stations or other newspapers around here are actually going to press her on this, saying, listen, you ran on this. This was specifically your wheelhouse here. Yeah. And now, you should be forced to answer for this right here. Just last week, I think it was. Or no. This was in February, excuse me. When Trump chose Tulsi Gabbard to be DNI. Here she was on Jen Psaki's MSNBC show pushing all this propaganda against Tulsi. It's not like she stopped having context at the CIA. It's not like she doesn't have her friends who will, give her whatever dirt the deep state wants out there. And she's, as a sitting congresswoman or now as a candidate for governor, was more than willing to push this stuff out in the open. Cut one.
So I'm a former CIA officer. I worked undercover for my time with the agency as a case officer. And case officers throughout the world currently are out there recruiting foreign individuals to provide information to the United States government, to provide information that helps inform our policymakers, our military leaders, our diplomats, and ultimately the president. And that's when we talk about sources and methods, right? The sources and methods are the means by which we know certain things, whether that's the person who's reporting that information in some far-off country, whether it's technologies that might be at play. And so not only is it vitally important that we have a clear understanding that every person with access to classified information, and especially the DNI, protects the classified information that is collected, but also that they protect and understand how sensitive sometimes our means of gathering that information is, the sources and methods. And the DNI is the person who sees everything. They know every capability. They know the information that we do or do not have, the information that is or isn't informing our decisions. And frankly, the reason that this nomination, I think, is so dangerous is because any damage that she would do, any information she would provide the president, right? She tweets Russian propaganda. Why not include it in the presidential daily brief?
There you go. So first of all, you heard her setting up her credentials and her expertise as a former CIA case officer. Here's, why this is important. And then she uses that to lend credibility to push this unfounded attack and calling our director of national intelligence a Russian asset and that she's working for Putin. Back in 2019, here's a tweet from her. We've been clear in our assessments of Russian meddling in the 2016 election and their ongoing pervasive efforts to undermine our democracy, and will continue to provide unvarnished and objective intelligence in support of our national security. As a former intelligence officer, I know how Russia is working to undermine the stability of our democracy. I urge everyone to seek out facts, read reputable sources, and make sure what you're reading is factual. So again, she keeps pushing this the same line. She was used. She was used by the intelligence willingly, by the way, and she continues to push it. And I think she needs to be pressed on this. On why she was so willing to push this Russian collusion. And she won the day. She beat Dave Bratt. She got into Congress, and now she wants to be governor.
Yes, and she is running as this just cheerful, moderate mom, and she uses her role as a former CIA official in a way to suggest that she's pro-American, she's working for national security, when in fact she for years misled the American public and used that role, used that title to strengthen her argument.
Yeah, she built upon the Trump derangement syndrome
That's right.
Narrative that was so pervasive back in 2016, 2017, 2018, and she turned that into a winning campaign for Congress. It was that big wave. A lot of women, by the way, a lot of white, suburban, liberal women, which she perfectly personifies. And you're right. Back then, by the way, she was saying, I'm proud to be a progressive. I'm proud to be. Now she calls herself a pragmatic Democrat. She was asked, what kind of Democrat are you? Liberal, progressive, moderate? She said, I'm pragmatic. I just want to focus on works. Really, what did you do to secure the border when that wasn't working? All right, well, Winsome Sears has a great ad, and we're going to hear it next. I want you to hear this ad as we continue this conversation about Abigail Spanberger in just a moment. It's 5:44.
WMAL, making sense of social media because big tech can't be trusted. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Abigail Spanberger voted against the Laken Riley Act. Abigail Spanberger voted against the Laken Riley Act. Let me just be clear on this. Abigail Spanberger said, no, we shouldn't deport illegal alien criminals with criminal records in this country and who have been arrested for breaking the law in this country. We shouldn't then put them immediately into a deportation path. They should be able to be released on bail so that they can go and murder an innocent young woman. That's what Abigail Spanberger voted to support. That's all the Lake and Rayleigh Act does. All it does is to say, simple. If you're in this country, legally or illegally, but especially illegally, and you've got a criminal record and you're arrested for breaking the law, you're open for deportation.
That's it.
She said no. And yet, listen to how Politico describes Abigail Spanberger in an article just this week. The centrist Democrat is leading her opponent by double digits, according to new data from Virginia Commonwealth University. Now, VCU is always wrong. I don't know why we trust VCU. They've been wrong for over a decade on polling in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You'd think Virginia Commonwealth would be good at polling the Commonwealth of Virginia, but they're not. But I have no doubt that Abigail Spanberger right now enjoys some lead in the polls over Winsome Sears. And the New York Post is celebrating her right now. And as you heard, the centrist Democrat is leading her opponent by double digits. This is Abigail Spanberger, who wants to be governor, right? So we've been waiting for Winsome Earl Sears to sort of, really sort of take the gloves off and go after Abigail Spanberger on all the vulnerable issues that are sort of 80-20 issues, those practical, obvious, common sense things that Donald Trump appealed to voters on so effectively. And so here's an ad that Winsome Sears has now put out. It's quite effective, actually. Take a listen.
What kind of Democrat are you? Liberal, moderate, centrist?
Pragmatic.
Pragmatic.
Yes.
I consider myself to be a progressive.
A physical wall is no. I also believe that we need to transition and encourage renewable energy.
I certainly want to protect every person who might be interested in arriving at the United States.
The really, I think, horrifying thing is that under the new administration, or the Trump administration, every cross into the United States is considered a criminal act.
All right, so we're only 30 seconds into this. First, you see her saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm a practical Democrat." Where when she was running for the nomination, she called herself progressive. And just in those 30 seconds, she was against a border wall. She was against arresting people for breaking our immigration laws. She was in favor of weaning ourselves off from oil and gas. And putting up policies and such against that. And what was the other one there that I missed? In favor of mass amnesty for anybody who is claiming amnesty. So that's just 30 seconds in, and look at those policies that she holds. But there's more. But go ahead, Julie.
You really quick, you can tell the word testing pragmatic, right?
Yes.
It's like there's a lot of people on the right who talk about common sense policies. Look, like getting boys and men out of women's and girls' sports, right? Not letting, I don't know, a criminal like Richard Cox walk into a women's locker room with his, thing out. These are very this sort of this idea of we need a law for that, right? She's obviously trying to tap into that. Pragmatic is one of those words that signals, she believes in common sense laws that protect people. When in reality, the better P word is progressive, which she embraced when it
mattered.
Yes.
And when she votes, again, this whole idea that she's
right.
Lake and Riley, that's a perfect test
yes.
of her idea. And it was a threat. It was going to pass anyway. So why did you have to line up against it other than to check a box for the lefties? Because that was before the primary. Virginia, if you're having some sort of, deja vu all over again here with regard to your statewide Democrat politicians, you're correct. She does remind you of somebody. I'll tell you in a second. Because right now she's just trying to present herself, hey, I'm just like you. I'm an affluent white mom in the suburbs. Like go in there. We moms, we know how to fix problems. All right, so listen to the rest of this ad.
New administration, or the Trump administration, every cross into the United States is considered a criminal act.
I think that single payer is a really great direction to go towards.
Oh, yeah, single payer. She wants to get rid of private health insurance. She wants single payer.
Yep.
She said that's again, centrist, pragmatic.
Radical.
Go towards.
We will be doing right by the people who have devoted themselves to the prospect of and the promise of diversity, equity, inclusion.
I don't think we need to plead guilty to being a progressive. I think it's generally considered to be a positive thing.
There you go. And as Winsome Sears' ad says at the final graphic there, dishonest and dangerously liberal. It's an effective ad. It's a good ad. I hope it gets lots of play. If you're having deja vu, you'd be forgiven, because this is exactly what Democrats do every time they run in Virginia. They pretend to be practical, pragmatic, moderate, centrist, not like those crazy Democrats over there who you don't like. No, I'm one of the good guys, because this is exactly what Ralph Northam did. And I mean exactly what Ralph Northam did. And then you saw how he ran. And it's exactly what Mark Warner and Tim Kaine did. It's exactly what Terry McAuliffe did. And once they get into office, they show their true colors. You cannot let her be governor of Virginia. It's 5:53.